Okay, so if you don't have your note packets, because they're here at the school, do not stress, do not fret, do not frown. I understand, but I still want to go over this information so that thereby everybody can enjoy. Okay, so we've gone from temperature fields now into topographic maps. Topographic maps measure elevation and their contour lines, okay? So the elevation is shown by the contour lines. That's what isolines are when they measure elevation. They're called contour lines, okay? So 40 meters, 60 meters, 80 meters, 100 meters, 120, 140. We can figure that out. We can also figure out what the elevation is. Something different, an isoline with marks on it. We're going to talk about that in a second. Okay, so just like all isolines, contour lines never touch, nor do they cross. We're going to see where they get very, very close to appearing to touch, but that's why we're going on our field trip. And we're going to find out they get close. They might look like they're touching, but they're really not. So let's talk about this line here. This is what's called the depression line. Okay, when it has little tick marks on it, it's like a hole. Okay, so I got 40, 60, 80, 100. But before we figure out what this line is here, okay, think of it this way, and I asked the question in class today. Do you count up into a hole? If you think about that, that makes no sense. You don't count up into a hole. Okay, you count down into a hole. So let's do it that way. 140, 120, 100. Okay? So that means that this is lower than 100 in here. And the reason why we do that is because if we don't do that, it gets kind of confusing. 40, 60, 80, 100. Some kids will count up to 120 on that, but that's not right. Some kids, oh, it's a depressed line, so it goes down. So it goes 100 to 80. But again, that doesn't make any sense when we know that this line's at 120. It's got to be 100. So that line is labeled 100 meters or 100 feet, okay, depending on whatever the scale is. So just like in temperature fields, B and C are far apart, so the ground is flat here. Between C and D, it's pretty close together, so that means it's really steep, okay? So, and away we go. Okay, so we have a lot of information with regards to gradient, okay, walking uphill, walking downhill. You can read through it. It doesn't necessarily need to be me reiterating it for you on this note sheet, okay? So we're actually going to cut to the chase and go to the next slideshow, okay? So what I went over with the class today on this note sheet is this. So we have a map here, okay? And there's some definite things that we need to be able to understand. First thing we need to be able to understand is that the ocean is 0 feet. If my feet are at sea level and they're in the ocean, then that means that it's got to be 0 feet. If I got 2 feet in the ocean, it's 0 feet. O for ocean, O for 0. Okay, 0 feet. Why do I emphasize that? Because I have a lot of kids that forget that when they get to a test or a quiz, okay? Ocean is 0. Now, why is it so important? Because they only have one number on this map. 0, 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. If I didn't have the 0 there, I wouldn't know what it's going up by, okay? So we need to, or we can also tell about valleys and hills, okay? So as I take a look at valleys and hills, I can see how things flow in terms of the rivers. The V, and notice I've highlighted that in green, if the contour line points up, then the river flows down. Okay? If the contour points to the left, then the river flows to the right. If the contour line points down, the river flows up. Whichever way the contour line points, the river flows the opposite direction. Okay? We also can maximize the elevation of hills, or find out what the highest elevation is, but not really any higher. So 100, 120, 140, 160. The next line, going up by 20s, doesn't exist. It would be 180. But since we don't have 180 there, we know that our highest we can get to is 179. Ooh, Mr. Perry, it could be 179.999. Don't even go there. It's 179. We're just leaving it there. Okay? Because then you would have to round up. Well, then Mr. Perry, it should be 179.49999. No, it's just 179. Leave it be. Okay, so 179. Not that I've ever had students try to do that. Okay? So if I want to estimate the maximum height of Amethyst Hill, it's 100, 120, 140, 160, The next line would be 180, but 180 doesn't exist, so this one would be 179 as well. So there we go. Okay, that's really what the notes entailed today. We went over how to read those maps, okay? Not to fill in we're not filling in the end of the note sheet, okay? We're going to take a look at that later, okay? But we did cover how rivers flow, what you do with holes, and how to label out these contour lines and start talking about them. And that's basically it. There's another video about the lab today. You got to watch that too.